Make sure I'm recording. Everything should be going. All right. I'm going to try to keep this as clean and as informal as possible. Don't hesitate to ask questions. But I'm going to start here in a moment with sharing my screen and kind of walking through all the things that are available to you with assignments. It should be exciting. At least I hope so. But I went ahead and just a little bit ago, I got a hold of some of our student workers and got them in place to help me kind of throw together some samples of assignments so we can kind of look at what some of the features are that come with assignments. And so that it's not just me building into an empty course. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up this demo course real quickly and share that with everyone. And as I said, don't hesitate to ask questions as we go. Now, right now I've built this course. It's largely empty other than about 3 assignments from the modular point of view, and I've already loaded in the assignments into the modules. I'll show how to do that kind of thing a little later on. But right now I'm just going to hop us straight into assignments. Now, there are several key features and things to understand about assignments that it's really easy to forget. First of all, assignments is a very broad range of topics in Canvas. Quizzes, the quiz features are technically an assignment as far as Canvas is concerned. Graded discussions are technically assignments as far as Canvas is concerned. But not all assignments are in fact quizzes or discussions. There's a whole set of them that are specifically just assignments. And we're going to kind of go over some of those real quickly, and just to kind of give you a sense of what they look like. Now, by default, you will have a group of assignments called assignments. And you can always start up a new assignment by either clicking this little plus or within a group, or this big purple button. So if I click the big purple button, it'll give me a blank assignment. And and you can see that I've been creating a bunch of odd things here and there. We'll give you a quick sample here of just a generic example. Now, you will need to title it. I recommend always using as meaningful of a title as possible, just to cut down on confusion. Admittedly, sample's not a great one. When you type that in, there's also a section below with a kind of a WYSIWYG or an HTML interface that you can add things into. This is where you can put in your instructions or descriptions. I warn you all very upfront that this part of the assignment is visible. So if you have something you don't want them to see ahead of time, don't put information in here ahead of time that's of that nature. This is not the place where you ask questions, in other words. But you could put down all sorts of instructions and have fun with it. I have a colleague who likes to embed video, so even like you would create a Canvas page and so forth, you can even go ahead and hop out to MediaSite and load in video instructions if you wanted to. You can do a fair amount to load in all sorts of interesting things into it. Make sure that your video is viewable, and so I'll just pop one in there as an example for fun. And so then I have my instructions plus video already in place, and that's just a test that I did earlier. So you can put all that information, you can put your whole lesson in there if you really wanted to, into that instruction area. Then you want to make sure you place in your points. If you have more than one assignment group, which we'll cover here in a moment, which you can assign it to different groups, but normally it defaults to the default group. Also, it defaults to points, and ultimately, in a sense, everything with Canvas kind of runs off of points, and I kind of recommend you stick with that. There is a checkbox down here if you don't want it to count towards the final grades. If you're doing some kind of mastery learning or such, you can check that box. That's a useful thing. Then we get into this really important setting, the submission type. So there are 4 different types of submissions. The first 2 are really the most important ones. The no submission just creates a column in your gradebook, or you may manually enter in grades. That's really nice if, for example, you have students sending you emails and that's what you're grading. And admittedly, that's kind of a low-tech solution and not a best-case scenario, but you can create columns in the gradebook that way. Or you can do online submissions. I should warn you that the on-paper submission type is no different than the no submission type. It's essentially just creating a column in the book. And then there are external tools, which we're going to kind of glaze over that. If you are using external tools, or you plan to, or you have in the past, if you have in the past, just go ahead. But if you're uncertain and you're wanting to delve into that, I would contact an instructional designer somewhere on campus and talk to them about it, because that's one of those places where you find yourself in a hole real quickly. For our purposes, we're going to mostly talk about online submissions. These are things that are not online quizzes, and they're really, really useful. The first choice is a text entry. This gives you a box that your students can just type directly into. So it's really nice. Once that's in place, you can actually even use the speed grader, which we'll show you in a moment, and use that. If you want them to submit a web URL, if, for example, your students are using Google Docs and they want to share that Google Doc with you, they can submit that shared URL in this place. It gives them a field to fill it in. It's a pretty useful arrangement. We can also do media recordings. This is a really nice feature where they can record directly into Canvas, or they can upload videos. You want to be careful in the instructions, though, to put some parameters on that, because you don't want big, huge files coming across, and that can, especially with as many people using the web as they are now, that could cause you problems. And then, of course, my favorite out of all your online assignment tools is the file uploads. This is great because this is particularly useful for submitting documents like Word documents, reports, papers, and so forth. This is ideal for them. They can submit other file types. You can restrict the file types if you need to. But typically, 9 times out of 10, the most instructors I've seen are just having Word documents uploaded, and I'll show you what that looks like. There are other couple of features that are important and relevant to some teaching approaches. You can make group assignments. You can create groups and group sets, and you can allow them to sign up and so forth, and split students into different groups. I don't have enough students in this course right now to really kind of demo that, but it is a viable alternative if you want to do that. You can also set up peer reviews, and those can be assigned manually or automatically, and they can even be anonymous. This can be kind of labor intensive, so be aware that peer reviews, it takes a little more work than just a straightforward assignment. Below, we get into the actual assign features that you would typically see in assignment. There are a myriad of choices available. By default, it assigns to everyone. If you need to assign to a group or to specific students, you can do that. So if you have a student who may need a longer period of time, or you may want them alone to have access to an assignment because they may be making up for something that others have done, this is where you would be able to do that. And you can actually add more than one of these. So this little add button will allow you to do several varieties of assignments at the same time. Next comes the due date. Due date's a little misleading. It doesn't actually impact when the assignment is available and when it actually is closed. What it does is actually create an entry in the calendar that feeds through Canvas. So this due date always needs to be the same date as your Intel. So if I went in here and I clicked my little calendar button and I want it a week from now, I would just click the button here and I can adjust the time if I want to. And I click done. It's important to know that this is when it actually closes, needs to match that or you'll get an error. And then this is when it's available. And I normally just default it the moment I want it to be ready, but you can set it up at any point in time. It automatically assumes by default that it's available at midnight of whichever day you start the assignment at. So we'll just leave it at that. Once all those settings are in place, you can save, or you can save and publish. If you hit save and publish, that's when not only the title is available, but any instructions. That's when they're going to be able to see that. So I can just go ahead and hit my save and publish. So if I wanted to see this from as a student, and I always recommend double checking your assignments from the student view, because sometimes you may not realize you haven't published things. I'd go back to your home page, hit that student view button, and you'll see these assignments I've already published in modules. I haven't published the other one in there. And here's my sample. And this is roughly what they're going to see because it's available. If it wasn't published, they wouldn't see that. And then when it's ready to submit the assignment, then they'll click submit assignment. You can do Dropbox and Office 365, but truthfully, I just use the file upload, and you can just choose the file and load things in there. Now this is just a preview, so I'm not going to go any further. Students can also add in comments if they run into problems and so forth. All those things are available to them. So I'm going to leave the student view real quick. Do I have any questions at this point? Because I'm just kind of going over the basic utility.
Ben, a quick question, please.
Okay.
So it showed there that you can upload more than one file. Is that the case?
Yes, you can. You can upload more than one file. Normally, students don't ever upload more than one file, but you can upload. So if I went into this example and submit assignment, I can choose to add another file and another file. So if you have an assignment that requires them to submit several pieces of documentation, they can do that. And that does happen, but typically, most of the time, students never even ask that question. They submit a singular file. So, and it's usually a Word document. So I'm going to leave my student view and kind of show what this looks like on the other end, just to kind of give you an idea from like the grading perspective. So if I go into my grades, we'll see my assignments as they have been created. Assignments will have this icon in place when something has been submitted. If they haven't submitted anything, there's a dash in place. And typically to go and grade an assignment, the easiest path to this is just click the actual assignment and go into it. And then we have this nice little feature over to the side that works really well for file uploads called SpeedGrader. And so we had a bunch of our student workers who are working remotely upload a bunch of these files. And I'm going to move my video, and hopefully you may have to move your video to see it because a lot of this is on the right side of the screen. So these are Word documents they've uploaded. I cheated and just made something for them to upload generically. But you do have a space. You can do some basic markup into this document if you need to, posting comments and leave a comment on specific points. You can highlight things if you want to, and you can even click in and add comments with what you've highlighted. There's a lot of features of what you can do with some of these things. You can add a text box, you can delete things out of that. All these features are available if you need to look closer at something. You can zoom and zoom out. So it's a nice set of quickly to use tools. If you want to just add an overall comment for the assignment, you can type it over here to the side. You can add attachments. You can do a media comment. So if you wanted to record a really quick little media upload and start recording, you could do that. It's not going to let me have two cameras running at once. That's why we don't see the camera. You can even do a little speech recognition, but I recommend mostly put your comments here, put them in the actual document, and then enter the grade. So if I wanted to give them, 90 points out of this, I could give them 90 points. And then when I'm all done, I just submit, and I can roll into the next person. And then once you click the little toggle here, this is really nice, you can see who all submitted by the little dot and who's been graded by the check. You can also use this little arrow button to automatically go to the next person. There are other features in here, like this is Casey's document. I don't think he changed anything in there. Because it's an assignment, you can give more score than is available, which changes the numerator. And actually, it's kind of like giving extra credit, truthfully. So even though the assignment's worth 100 points, I can enter in 110 points and give them extra credit per se. And that's perfectly within my right. Now, this submit button, I should clarify. You only need to hit the submit button for the comments. You can just roll forward and through the course and add things as you need to. Once you put anything in, though, it'll retain it in terms of grade. SpeedGrader is one of my favorite tools. It works really, really well. I do recommend using it. There's a couple of other features that you can do. You can, download the file. If I needed to download the file, and that's actually downloading out right now to my desktop, that's available. You can do those kinds of things pretty quickly. You can also download submission comments. So all those features are available for you as you work through this whole process. And that opens up as a separate window. We can go back to the assignment itself. We talked about the SpeedGrader. There's also this download submissions. If you want to download all your submissions in bulk, if for some reason you prefer to actually print things out, or you want to store them in case you're concerned about keeping records separate from being up on the cloud, you can hit download submissions and pull everything down. Another nice feature that we really haven't set up to any degree is that you can use rubrics in these systems. And rubrics can really speed up this process. You can find existing rubrics. Let's see if I have some that I have access to. And I'm part of a whole slew of things. So you can find a whole slew of different rubrics that we can use, and you can submit them into that and use this rubric. And then those rubrics, when you come into SpeedGrader, can actually be used to select and add comments for each criteria. Now, the rubric I used is a different points than I assigned to it, and that'll cause you problems. You want to build and make sure your rubric has the same points as what you put in. But I was just kind of showing you on the fly how you can drop those in. And they can be really nice because rubrics are dynamic. You can select different cells if you set different criteria, and it'll automatically populate in the grade for you. But if you're just trying to get this going, I wouldn't necessarily recommend using rubrics because it's an extra level of effort to actually get it in place. So I'll close that out real quickly. And we'll move things around on my screen so I can see everything. So there's always a lot of choices in there. Do I have any questions about grading at this point?
Yes, please, Ben.
Yes.
So can you set up the rubrics specifically to each assignment?
Yes, absolutely. So
Okay.
I was just pulling from a pre-built rubric. You don't have to do that whatsoever. You can, in fact, just create a rubric on the fly.
Okay.
You can write in what the criteria and description is, short description, long description. You can add in more levels. You can change the point values.
Okay, so can you say that your assignment has 5 questions? You can have points for each of the 5 questions, and that's part of your rubric here, correct?
You could absolutely do that. Usually, rubrics work well for kind of production kind of instruments, written papers, projects that are submitted, that kind of thing. If you're just grading individual questions, I almost wonder if quizzes might be a better tool for you. And there are sessions on quizzes, but if you're having them do, for example, like short answers and so forth, and you just want it in a singular Word document, that works just fine. Then it's kind of like a worksheet almost. So you could create a criteria for each one of them and then just quickly grade that. If it's in place, I mean, that works really quickly. So let's say if I just used this simple rubric here as my rubric for that, and it's worth 100 points, and I attach that, then I could actually go into my speed grader. We're just making this match now, and then I can go to my last student who I have not graded, Justin here, and it may be a little upset with me because I've been adjusting rubrics on the fly. You shouldn't be popping in and out rubrics before you have people submit things. You should get that all done in place. I may have made it really mad. Well, I didn't finish it. It's what I didn't do. I didn't create the rubric. And
so does it populate the grade book automatically? Do you have any control over that? Can this?
Yes, absolutely. You do have some control over that. So now this is that quick rubric we created. And let's say I'm being unhappy with Justin. I would just give him 50%, save my grade, and I could type in something just to be snarky and put that in place. So now when I go to my grade book, we will see, in fact, that the rubric should automatically populate across. Oh, it did not submit it. That's funny. We'll try again. So it didn't link up like I thought it would. Well, we'll go ahead and type it in and submit it. That should work. But normally it does submit automatically as far as I know. But now everything should be okay. We're hopping around a lot. It's causing the system to have some hiccups. But then you can do these things and it will in fact impact your total grade and everything along the way. So I'll go back into my assignments right there. So there's a lot of choices in here when you're building different ones. This is the basic file upload that we went through earlier. We also have a text example if you just want them to type in. So I asked my students to just create a text example, and it just creates a very generic field where they type in things. We'll see if any of them got a little interesting in what they submitted. Lessons learned from home quarantine: cucumbers don't freeze well. That's a pretty good lesson. And then another one, which is just kind of a generic one. And so I can enter in comments, I can enter in grades. Because it isn't like a Word document, I don't get as many features available in there. If I'm having trouble reading it, I can always push it to plain text view. But so those are some of the elements you can add in really quickly. We also, I think I had one student or one colleague who did a video example for us, just to kind of give you an idea what that looks like. And let's hope it actually loaded in there. So this submission is a media recording, click to view, and then we'll get a little thumbnail in there. So I think I had a couple of them who may have submitted video. We'll see if anybody, and here's another one. So yeah, and they can actually even upload MP4s and such. That's Casey's cat sleeping. So you can have some fun with this. It doesn't have to just be Word documents, and it doesn't have to be just a text entry that they can quickly enter into. Those are the bulk of the baseline kinds of assignments you do build. There are other assignments that you can build, and I highly recommend you kind of think about that. For example, when you go into discussions, and I know this is probably a little farther afield, if you create a discussion, you'll need to title it. You can do instructions and so forth. You can even do things like that. The moment you click that little graded box under options, it becomes an assignment. And that's an important thing to realize. So then it fits in with all your other assignments. And so once that's been submitted and everything, you can actually go through into your assignments section, and now it shows up in assignments. And once that's in place and you click it over here, once the material starts getting in there, you can start using SpeedGrader for discussions. And not a lot of people immediately realize this unless you work with a lot of discussions. And that's really nice, because with SpeedGrader, you don't see the whole threaded comments. You just pull out the comments made by a specific student. So if you want to sort a discussion board, SpeedGrader is a really nice tool. You can also add in rubrics and so forth. That's getting a little further afield. Any quizzes that you actually add will show up also as assignments, although they work a little differently. They're built to automatically grade unless you put in things like short answer or essay questions, in which case you'll actually have to go in and grade those elements within a quiz. I'm not going to go too far into quizzes. I know Hung Fu's done several videos. He's probably going to do a few more sessions on quizzes. Quizzes can get pretty elaborate, but from the assignment side, they are also an assignment. So keep that in mind. Anything about just the generic base level assignments that you'd like to ask before I start showing some of the other aspects and features of assignments? They're kind of the higher level things you can do with them.
I wonder if Canvas assignments lend themselves to exams.
Okay, if you're talking like a written exam, they
Yes.
can. If you're talking like multiple choice and true false and things of those nature, you want to really look at the quiz tool.
Right. No, I've already, quizzes look too simplistic for what I need. I need more elaboration from the students, and that's why the assignments piece is more of what I'm looking at. So they would have to upload a file.
That's one approach. You can build very elaborate quizzes. Most people don't show that because we're really into kind of building multiple choice, selection grade examples. And I kind of want to point this out because it's really easier for you to handle in some ways if you go into it. So I'll just go ahead and pop that in there and save this, and then we'll edit. Because there are some question types that can be really very useful that aren't the ones that people just normally grab a hold of. So when you select questions, if you're having them write a lot, by all means, You know, we can do fill in the blank for short answers or multiple blanks. But essay question is your best friend. You can definitely put in essay questions. It gives them a big text box they can enter. So you can have several questions in there that you can add in there, you know, and just put in place. And then when you're done, you can update it. You should, by default, it'll be 1 point, but you can even change the point values and everything. There's also another feature that I don't see as many people use, but it's one of my favorite things, is like a text box. So if I wanted to give a description of something or have them read something, this is a great place to enter in more text, and you can get into a lot of detail there. You can actually, even if you needed to, embed things like a YouTube video or a Mediasite video. All of that can be added in addition to just a standard question. And then you can even go further afield, other than multiple choice and so forth. You can even have file uploads. Now that's kind of a redundancy. If you're just doing file uploads, that's when I would use a basic assignment, the ones that I was showing earlier. But I've seen some really unique use cases of people using the quiz structure for file uploads. Not what I would recommend just off of hand. But so you can create that. And as we go back to the assignments, as you'll see, now we have these standard assignments that I've been talking about. The discussion board has the 2 little balloons, and the quizzes will always have a little rocket, but they're all assignments in the end. But if you're looking for just traditional testing, if what you typically handed out in the past was, say, an assignment, and you can do this. If you have an assignment that if your test is I hand out about 5 questions on 3 sheets of paper and I want my students to answer them, and you want them to answer them and submit it back up, there is no reason why you can't do that. Where it's, for example, an essay test. And when you do that, and I can't barely see my screen, I'm half blind, sorry. When you do that, you can give instructions, as I said, which are visible, and you can do a file upload, which is what I would strongly recommend. But there are other features you can add into that. You could, you know, give them a document that they have to download and so forth. As you
Okay, great. So how do you do that? How do you provide them with a document that they download, they fill up, and they turn back in?
Okay. Let me see if I can get this going right, because I got a little ahead of myself right here.
I didn't mean to, Ben.
Yeah.
Go back to your own pace.
Okay.
Translator, that's fine.
That's all right. I'm looking at where I would put that other than instructions, because if you put it in the instructions, that's where you kind of get yourself into trouble. I know this can be done. It's just remembering how it's done. Points, assignments. Well, maybe it's not. This may be one of those use cases where you use a quiz and create a text box to allow them to download it. I mean, we can link to files here if we wanted to.
Okay.
And pull them in, but that's putting it in your instructions.
Right.
And that's fine if you're only providing the assignment open for a limited window.
Okay.
So if I wanted to upload something really quickly in the instructions, you know, I can upload that in quick order, and that provides a link for them to download and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But that's in the instructions. And if it's in the instructions, and in fact, in any assignment, if it's in something you're having them download, that's on their local machine. And so it's out in the wild once you do that.
Yeah, good point.
So that if you're wanting to keep things from not being in the wild, then I wouldn't be giving them documents.
Okay,
But
fair.
if you're giving them like a take-home exam, by all means, put something out there
Okay.
in the instructions, and then they can download it, they can fill out the form, and then they can upload it back to you. And that works really, really well. That's a good question. I think it just kind of caught me a little off center here. Sorry about that.
That's okay. You did great.
And so this is what they would more or less see if we were in a student view at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple other features about assignments that are probably a nice thing to know. You can create assignment groups. This is useful if you kind of want to sort out your grade book, or if you want to weight different portions of your course. If I create an assignment to say is, for example, quizzes and exams, I can create this group here, and I can put my quizzes down in there really quickly. So now it's separate. When I go to my grades, I'll actually see it separated in here, so that now they're ordered in relationship to each other. Example quizzes, talk to me, and then it'll help you sort your grade book. Also, you can do other tricks other than just separating things into different quantities. You can edit them and set up rules. So for example, you have a lot of one type of assessment and you want them to be able to drop the lowest one. Now, since there's only one thing there, that doesn't work so well. But if you had them doing a bunch of journal writings, 4 or 5 of them, you want them to be able to drop the lowest value one, you can set a lowest one. It also says highest scores. I've never seen that in application. And then you can also set it so an assignment is never dropped if one of them is a high value criteria. So that's one of those kinds of really nice features you can set up as for rules for an assignment group. So if you want to start grouping things of a kind together and then setting up special rules to drop one or to keep one from being dropped. Another feature, and this one's a little more complex with assignments, is you can assign group weights. Once you do group weights, you can set it up so that, say, it doesn't matter how many points of assignments you have in one group, it will only count toward, in this instance, for my base assignments, towards 75% of my grades, and my exams and quizzes, which admittedly, this is wholly unrealistic. 25% of my grade, and then I would save it, and then it automatically calculate among all the points and assignments for being 75%, and then even though this is 1 2-point quiz, it would be 25% of my score. So that's something you can also do, and once you have those weights in place, it shows up here. Not everybody does that. And it has some utility, but it's not necessary by any means. It is a clever way to do some things like extra credit if you wanted to. One warning though, and this one has been mentioned on a lot of different venues, where it says not common, one thing. Where is it? Common favorites. That's not what it should. Avoid setting your grades. That's strange. Normally it talks about avoid setting your grades to curves, period. The system gets really moody when you start curving grades, and it's not something that can be undone. So I think that actually may be in your grade book where you get to set everything to a curve. But repeatedly, that's one of those features you hello. So I would avoid curving your grades. If it rarely has the results most people expect it to. And it's one of those things that once done is very difficult to have undone, and it requires a system admin to actually undo it. Do we have any other questions at this point? I hope I covered everything that needs to be covered. You can build assignments on the fly. We often don't talk about the power of the module section, but if I wanted to create an assignment quickly on the fly, if you just click plus module, one of your first choices is assignments. I mean, also there's quiz, and you can just click the bracketed new assignment and immediately go into building a new assignment. It by default, when you create it, it creates a blank assignment that you'll need to go in and add things to. But you can do that pretty quickly. And so I would then have to click into that and add the details I wanted to, you know, like the instructions, the point values, whether or not it belongs to a group. I can even create new groups, but we'll keep it in assignments. And as I said, I always recommend doing things like file uploads with the assignment tool. It's probably the best chosen feature. And then I can just get it into place really quickly and then back to my home page. There we go. I think I've covered the bulk of the typical things done with assignments. We can get pretty elaborate if you want to, in which case I would talk to somebody who's had a lot of experience to it, or to an instructional designer. Global Campus offers up a lot of these resources. Don't hesitate to contact them. I think that covers it. Is there anything else I should be adding in there? Do you think, Ron? You're muted, Ron. That's fun. Let me unmute you real quick. There you go. Well, it really doesn't want to. Stop share.
Okay, I'm on again.
There you go.
Did you see the last comment? Last
no,
chat?
I've actually haven't read through the.
Okay.
So last comment thing. Okay, can I explain the difference between pages, assignments, and modules and how to use them correctly? We always used assignments as a standalone feature and have never connected them with pages and modules. Excellent question. It's kind of out of the purview of what we're doing, but by all means, this is an important question. This is one of those things that's easy to get confused with inside of Canvas. Modules are basically like a box. Almost anything can be a module. So when we create a module, if you hit the big purple, button, you're actually creating a header for more modules. That in itself isn't a module. It's just a header. So I'll click one in there, and it always comes in unpublished. But when you click the little plus button by a module, that's when you start building actual modules. And modules, as I said, is essentially a container. It's a way of organizing your course. They make nice kind of outline-like structures inside that, especially if you have your homepage set to modules, which an empty course is defaulted to. So I can attach to other assignments. I can attach to quizzes. I can even have files that I might want them to download. It's really nice if you hit new file, I can go up and upload a file. But a page, that's the other thing. A page isn't a module whatsoever. It can be a module, but a page is basically a blank web page, you know. And pages have a lot of utility. They're very dynamic. It's like building your own little mini single serving website. So I'll add a page in here. And this right now is a page. And it's empty. But if I hit edit, I get my whole WYSIWYG editor right there. So I can add in text, I can embed in videos. In fact, this is the preferred way to add in MediaSite videos. I can embed in YouTubes. And one thing that we never talk about pages is pages you know, like modules are single servings, but pages are very open and very, if I want to make links to other things, you know, within my course. So like I wanted to link to, where is it? Another paper. If I wanted to have a whole lesson in there, I could put this link into an assignment in my page. So you can do a lot of interconnecting within the site. And so that's really kind of a neat thing about pages. So you can get very dynamic with a page. You can insert images, all these things. And then once they're in place, then it's all there. Your videos, your links to your assignments and everything. Now, in terms of building courses, my recommendation is if you don't want your students lost, keep a modular view. That's the easy, low-hanging fruit, best design. And then use pages in your design of your modules, as many as you need, and embed everything you want to in a given lesson. And there's no problem with also, you know, loading up in modules your exams down below and such, because you can do that pretty quickly. Let me see. I don't think I actually ever published my quiz. So you can get a lot of things in place all together really, really rapidly. Now, assignments are places where they can upload files, they can drop in text, or in some instances, they can be totally flat where it's just a column in the grade book and you'll just drop in a score. And that's a great place if you're having them email you submissions and so forth. Or if you're doing a Zoom session and you want to drop in points for participation in the Zoom session. That's a good use for a no submission assignment. I hope that answered the question. I'm going to stop my share so I can see the comments out here. Yeah, didn't know about rubrics. Rubrics are fun. Make sure your point values match with the value of your assignment. Otherwise, it gets a little squirrely. They're a real quick way to do a lot of very fast grading. We have several faculty members over in the College of Business who really like to rock the rubrics. And it's a nice way to kind of tie it in with outcomes that you may have with your program. Any other questions? Can you repeat how to add files to the assignment instructions? Absolutely. Let's go hop back in there and we'll do that real quickly. So if I wanted to add a file, let me go to my file upload, and I wanted them to have a file in advance. Unlike quizzes, this is an important little caveat. Unlike quizzes, if you build a quiz and anybody takes a quiz, you can't really change that quiz once people have started taking the assignment. File uploads, you can actually come in there and tweak the instructions as it's being used. So if I wanted to add a file, or an image, or links to other resources like other pages, I can do that. And so if I wanted to, I just come over to the tabs here where it says files, and anything that I've already uploaded is accessible. I have that from the earlier one that I did, the homework example, or I can upload on the file and gives me a choose file option. And it's much like adding an attachment to a document. Oh, I don't want to, trending topics, non-lead ad. We'll add that in there. That's a fun one. And then once you've chosen a file, it'll show you it's there, give you a partial title, and you hit the upload button, and it'll automatically upload it into your files, which is over here, and create a link within your instructions. And you can give them several documents. There's not any one reason to give them a singular document. If you want them to have more resources, by all means, give them more resources. And as I said, if you wanted to add things like instructions, you can do a little media site recording and upload that in fairly short order also. Here's me testing an Elmo. And you don't have to give them a big full thing. So here's a thumbnail of me testing Elmo. And you can see the creative names I give things when I'm just testing stuff. And so, and you can edit all this stuff if you want to. And then when it's all ready and done, you just hit save. Always make sure you hit save. And so then that changes everything right there. Now they have a document to download and a video to view. And I don't know if I published this yet. Oh, well, let's go see. And we can always double check from the student view whether things are available. And which one did I put in there? Oh, I didn't. I don't think I. What did I name that one, Ron? Do you remember? I'm just trying to do things on the fly so quickly. Well, we'll leave student.
I think it was file upload example then.
Oh, that's the one I changed. Absolutely. Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Sometimes I get moving a little too fast for my own good. So I know that one's published. And so you always want to double check what's in place for your students. So this one has a rubric, and it does show the rubric. You can, I believe, hide that if you want to. I think that's a choice. But see, there's a document and so forth. Remember, the instructions in an assignment are available the moment an assignment is published. If you want to hide instructions, I would go to the quiz structure, create a text box, and then use their essay or file upload tool. And that way, when they access the quiz, then they can see those other features. Okay, I'll stop my share so I can see the chat channel. I hope that's everything. Don't hesitate to keep going to the Keep Teaching website. There should be updates going in there all the time. A lot of really admirable work's been going on there. We need to thank a lot of the people out there who are doing that, like Laura and Trina from Global Campus, and Katie, who's only been here about 7 or 8 weeks. That's a rough introduction to a new job, but she has been standing up admirably to that. And of course, you know, Don Saucier with the Teaching and Learning Center. So there's been a lot of really amazing work going on with this. If there aren't any more questions, I'm probably going to end this session, or at least shut down the recording if anybody wants to ask things kind of off the record.
I went ahead and added the links again. So if anyone came in later, and they're in the chat now.
All right.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Yep. I'm going to shut down the recording.